Welcome back. I'm Scott Wilson for the Pressing Matters. Today I wanted to talk about the One Step series, particularly the latest one, which is Paul Simon, Still Crazy After All These Years. I have a little bit of history with the One Step series. I have most of them, but I did miss or skip a couple of things. I remember when I first saw the ad in a Music Direct flyer or catalog for Abraxas, and I was like, boy, I would like to get that, but I don't know if I want to spend $100 on a record, especially where I have the perfectly good ARS German pressing that's very highly regarded for Abraxas. And I waited, and I regretted. As you probably know, it turned out to be one of the best releases. I've never heard it, but everyone says that this is probably the best one, and it's also the rarest one because they only did a small amount and it was gone in a short time. And since then, it has gone up in price and gone up in price, and it's in the stratosphere now. Probably will never get a copy, but I'm okay with that. I started picking them up on the second release, which was Bill Evans, Sunday at the Village Vanguard. And with that one, my copy is actually still sealed, and that's something that I don't normally do, but I did have a very good copy, the earlier Alto Analogue copy of that record that I was satisfied with, and for some reason I just put off opening it. At that point there wasn't really any reports about pressing problems or anything like that, so I felt pretty confident leaving it sealed. Now it's so valuable sealed, I don't know what I'm going to do. I probably will open it at some point because that's usually the best thing to do, but we'll see. Then there was the Nightfly, which I liked very much, and so on and so forth. So I skipped a couple of titles. The Stevie Ray Vaughan titles I was not interested in. I'm just not into Stevie Ray Vaughan. I didn't feel like I wanted to spend that kind of money on that. I also skipped Blood, Sweat, and Tears. I'm kind of kicking myself for that. Not that I'm in love with the album. I think it's a good demo album, but it's not something I listen to very often. I have a perfectly fine original pressing that sounds spectacular, and I'm sure the One Step sounds even better. But I really don't need to hear a lot of that again. And if I got it, it would just be to demo a couple cuts and that's it. Not an album I love all the way through. Also, let's see, I think that's the only ones I missed. Yeah, Abraxas, the two Stevie Ray Vaughans, and Blood, Sweat, and Tears. And I'm signed up for the rest. And if you are interested in One Steps, you ought to sign up through Music Direct for pre-orders. They don't list them on their website. You need to call. It's very simple. Just call, ask them what's on the agenda coming up, and they will put in a pre-order for you. And that's the best way to ensure that you get a copy from the source. Don't do it through MOFI. There are two different entities under the same umbrella, but I would do it through Music Direct. That's the best way. So that brings me to the latest release, which is the Paul Simon. Oh, I wanted to mention one thing. In my second video, or second or third video, I mentioned about a protection solution for these. Being that they become so valuable, I wanted something to protect them. It looks good. So I got these box set protectors from Bags Unlimited. I'll leave a link in the description below. I didn't know at the time that they look like this. They look pretty clear, I thought, but I discovered later on that they actually have a film on them that you can peel off. And let me see if I can do that on camera. Which reveals a truly crystal clear result. It actually goes all the way around. Let me see if I can get it off. Yeah. And up here too, around the tabs. So yeah, it's way better, super clear. And sorry I didn't mention that in the first video, but I didn't know about it and discovered it by accident. So they open like this. You can remove your One Step. It locks into place like that. Open it up like that, and I just kind of slide it out like that. And you have your perfectly preserved One Step. So, again, it's beautifully presented in a gold embossed matte finish box with gold embossing on the spine. They've started to do stickered rather than handwritten numbers, which I prefer. I don't know who was doing the writing, but it was kind of hard to decipher sometimes what number you had because of the style of the penmanship. So this is much better. And it looks better, I think, too. This is number 1969 of 8,000. MOFI Ultra Disc One Step pressing. Yeah, so we've discussed their packaging before a little bit, but it's a lift-off box. And you know, the reason I wanted to get covers for these or some kind of protection is because they tend to pick up fingerprints and scuffs pretty easily. This is that kind of, almost feels like rubberized coating on the One Step boxes. So it's a little, not fragile, but a little susceptible to getting marked up. And I didn't want that to happen. So what you get also is a reproduction of the original cover with the banner, of course. And lyric sleeve is printed on the back of this. I think it was an insert into a single pocket when it came out. And then credits are here. And I was kind of pouring through the credits. This is engineered by Phil Ramone and features some heavy hitters, but interestingly, I had no idea that Patty Austin and Phoebe Snow were featured on the album as well. And also Bob James did a lot of arranging on this album. It's very, very slick sounding album. So that's the second piece you get in the box. This is the description of the Ultra Disc process, which the One Step process is a lacquer, and then the convert, and then it's pressed from that. So that's why they're so limited is because they're not making a bunch of stampers from, a father, mother, stamper, etc. So it's a lot less steps and a lot less opportunity to create many stampers for, thousands and thousands and thousands of run. This pretty much, I haven't seen them do anything over, is it 10,000? I think the Bob Dylan was the highest one. I think it was 10,000. So they are truly limited in nature. And the one-step process, of course, brings you closer to the master tape sound. Inside the box, so this is my one gripe with this series. Instead of getting a nice gatefold of the original jacket, what they do is, the format is to put two of these custom sleeves, labeled LP1 and 2 in the box. And if you wanted to keep these, personally, the box, it takes up a lot of space on the shelves. If I had a bunch of box sets here, I would lose so much space. So I have them in another area, but I would prefer to be able to keep an original sleeve, or the special sleeve that they would have, separate from the box to keep on the shelf. And I would prefer it to be the original jacket. You can keep these on the shelf, of course, if you want, but I don't know. I think it would be better, but the format's already been established, so this is how it's going to be. And it is very beautiful. There's not really much in the box, but they had to make it special, and I think it looks special, it feels luxurious, and it certainly is luxurious in sound. So what of the sound? I really wanted to hear the single My Little Town in the best quality possible. And that's what prompted me to pick this up. And the track seems to be recorded in a different way or different place. Being a collaboration with Art Garfunkel, it's kind of separate from the rest of the album. And the sound is just a drop below the consistency of the rest of the album. But it still sounds spectacular, and I'm probably going to bet that it's the best rendition that's out there. It's really great to hear them singing together in this track. I like the way the track was created. It just, it's a nice addition to the album, and I guess they both got to take the track for their solo albums, because it also appears on Breakaway, which came out around the same time, Art Garfunkel's Breakaway. Also a really good sounding album. So there's that. But overall, the consistency of the rest of the album is spectacular. Now these are pressed on Supervinyl. I don't know if I mentioned that before. About midway in the series, I forget what the first one was. I think it might have been What's Going On, Marvin Gaye. They switched to JVC Supervinyl. I don't know if you can see, but yeah, you can see through it. I'm sorry, not JVC Supervinyl. Their own brand of Supervinyl that's made by RTI, and specifically for these releases. Out of all this premium vinyl formulations, such as Clarity and Neotech, I think this one is the quietest. and it really shows off the strengths of the one-step process to be able to hear it on a silent surface, and that's what we get here. Particularly, I noticed it on the opening cut. It's a very sparse arrangement, just starting out with piano and voice, and the space, the way everything's hanging in space is just very impressive, and that wouldn't have been possible without this kind of formulation. It really draws you into the studio and makes it that much more involving. So the vinyl compound combined with the one-step process is what makes these one-steps so desirable. They just have an immediacy that you don't get with a normal pressing. The 45, of course, format as well. So all these things, these three things add up to spectacular in most cases. I think every single one of the one steps thus far has been considered the best that it's ever sounded. And the ones that I've had opportunity to compare with something else, I agree with that assessment. They really are special. They are the best sounding renditions that I've heard of these albums. So yeah, this starts with, like I said, Still Crazy After All These Years, track I like very much, and it's sparse and beautiful, and the sound is lush and involving, beautifully balanced. Soundstage is incredibly wide and deep, and bass foundation is really noticeable how defined it is and how present it is. Very impressive right off the bat. The second track is My Little Town, which I discussed a little bit, and it goes on into other tracks that I'm not that familiar with, but also sounded to the level of the first track. Really strong, impressive, involving. And on the second side, there's a couple of tracks with a choir. The one track that he does called Gone at Last, it's kind of an old style gospel tinged number with a choir, and Phoebe Snow shares vocal responsibilities on that cut, and it's very, very impressive. The delineation of voices in the chorus, you can really pick out individual voices, and of course she sounds fantastic too. She's a great vocalist. If you've ever heard her solo album, the one with Poetry Man, that's also an incredible record that every audiophile should hear and probably own. Even the original pressing and Shelter version, Shelter Records version, is great. But I plan to get Analogue Productions version. They have a 45 version of her solo album that I'm dying to get my hands on. It's temporarily back ordered, so when it comes back in, I hope I can get one, and I'll cover that as well. But the rest of the album is up to the same high standards as the first cut, and 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover sounds spectacular as well on this album. That was the big hit, and overall I was very engaged with the record. For someone that's not a diehard Paul Simon fan, I really am glad to have the album, and the sound makes the album for me. The songwriting, of course, is strong, and all the performances are great, but the sound really wins me over and draws me in on this album, and that's pretty much been the case throughout the series. I think there was only one that I was a little bit disappointed in, and that was the Bill Evans Portrait in Jazz. It was good, a good transfer, sounded very good, but not a recording that is up to the standards that probably the rest of the series has. But I do like most of the titles in the series. I plan to do a small, a short video going through each one and saying a few words about each one, my impressions of the rest of the One Steps that I own. Coming up in the One Step series, there's going to be, let's see, this year I think Pearl, Janis Joplin Pearl will be next. And then Tapestry, Carole King. I think Carole King has the potential to really shine on this format. I'm really looking forward to that one. The only other copy I have is the Classic Records version, which is good, but I've heard it's been bettered by Mobile Fidelity's own single disc. So yeah, I think that one's going to be really good, and there's a lot of strong titles coming out later in the series. CSN, Crosby, Stills, Nash debut is going to be a good one, and if they can do Cannonball Adderley's Something Else, that will be a great one too. It's been kind of on and off the roster. I hope it's on, because I'm looking forward to that. I think they're also doing Muddy Waters, Folk Singer, which is an audiophile classic. I have a really good copy of it, but I'll probably get this one too, just to review it for you guys. So all in all, they keep putting out the hits. I don't think they've really had any misses with this series, and they are really upping the game for premium quality vinyl releases, and they're keeping it consistent, and they're keeping the titles coming pretty quickly compared to Analogue Productions, which is kind of putting out a UHQR every year, it seems like. And this last one, Kind of Blue, is going to last a while because they have to print 25,000, I'm sorry. So I know no one will get the next one of those, but anyway, that's it for today. Thank you for tuning in and taking a look at Paul Simon's Still Crazy After All These Years One Step with me. I'll see you next time. Thank you.